If we're really to solve the climate crisis, truly solve it, it will mean closing all fossil fuel industry in relatively short order. I don't think that there's really a future for a company like Exxon or a company like Shell if we're going to live responsibly when it comes to climate. We have to zero out on emissions entirely, and that means essentially wiping fossil fuel infrastructure off the planet. And how that will come to pass, I think, has to be a policy question, which means a politics question. The fossil fuel business in the US is being subsidized by the federal government. It's succeeding in part because of the support of the government. If we took those subsidies away, the economic calculus would be very different. Today, based on the pollution that is being produced by fossil fuel companies and industries, thousands of Americans are dying every year. Globally, it's the numbers in the millions. And we are doing that for the benefit of the owners of those fossil fuel companies and almost no one else. We are subsidizing those companies so the executives and investors can make money at the cost of the health and well-being of the people of this country who are suffering already and will suffer much more intensely in the decades ahead if we don't change course right now. Globally, we are subsidizing the fossil fuel business to the tune of $5.3 trillion a year. Most of those subsidies have to do with the fact that the price does not yet adequately reflect the environmental cost of these fuels. If we had a price that did adequately reflect that, I think that would go quite a long way towards changing the incentive structure of companies like, say, Exxon or Shell. I think some of them are sort of advocating imposing a carbon tax as a kind of trade-off in a bargain in which they would receive immunity from future liability lawsuits. And I think that reflects a kind of cold-eyed calculation of what they think is coming for them politically in the decades ahead, as we understand just how damaging their product has been to the public health of the planet over the last few decades and will be even more so in the decades ahead. I think history will render a very brutal verdict on fossil fuel companies. In particular, Exxon and Shell, I also think, has had a long history of denial, funding disinformation, funding inertia on climate. I think they will be seen in much worse light than, say, the cigarette companies are today. Their behavior in the marketplace, their behavior in searching out new reserves to use in the future is, practically speaking, suicidal, and I don't just mean that for them as companies, I mean that for us as a planet and as a species. On the other hand, I also think that we vilify particular entities, even those who are genuinely villainous, in part as a way to alleviate our own sense of responsibility and guilt, because I benefit from the fossil fuel economy. Everyone alive today on the planet, to some degree, benefits from that fossil economy, and it's up to us to make a change to that system. It's not just a matter of Rex Tillerson's villainy. It's a matter of the way that we have all collectively chosen to conduct our lives, choosing cheap energy and material comforts that would in the past not have been possible without fossil fuels. We're sort of voting that way ourselves every day, and as much as we would like to believe otherwise, most of us are voting to continue the system that we have today rather than dramatically changing it as we need to. We need to have a way to avoid drilling and producing those fossil fuels. We need to stop building new infrastructure, which we're doing every day. We basically need to cut this entire industry off at the root if we have any hope of securing a future for ourselves that is livable.